Ooh, alrighty. So for this video, I've been working on security stuff. So for this one, brings up one of the ultimate things that I see a lot of people not doing. Windows updates. Keeping a current updated Windows. Right now I see and I have a lot of people that are still running Windows 7. And I tell them, what are you doing? Windows kind of got into some stuff that I know they shouldn't have, but you can upgrade to Windows 10 for free. Wow. So why in the world are you running Windows 7 without updates? I guess people don't know. I don't know why people wouldn't know. That leads me to the subject of making sure Windows is updated. Making sure you have vulnerability patches. Making sure you have these things done. It's not really that hard of a thing. I know it takes time. I know it's annoying, especially when there's major version differences and it takes 30 to 40 minutes. But it really sucks as a business when you got, 300 computers and you got to do 30 minutes at each workstation and, trying to do it when someone's not there. And, then a lot of times there's version updates and then there's updates to the version updates. And, it can be quite a chore. Not to mention, someone can bring you a Windows 7 computer that still has Windows 7 updates pending on it. Where then you have to wait for all those updates to run before you can do anything on it. And I go, wow. When was the last thing this thing was updated? And, you're on there doing banking and you're doing other things, especially like in 2021 of all of chaos and all this other stuff going on out there, that everybody's online doing doctor's appointments and everything else, and you're running a unprotected system basically. So it brings me to this major update. Make sure you do them. Make sure you have the current versions. There's reasons why there's updates. It's the security. Not to mention, Windows updates the security. Not just patching the OS. It updates the firewall, the virus scan, the other features. And if you have virus scans, malware scans, all of these other things that are out there that you may pay for or have free versions of, make sure they're updated. I see people that just install them and they think, okay, I'm done with it. A lot of these software actually have settings in there that you can say, on X day or Tuesday or whatever, at whatever time, go in and do an update. So if you know you're going to be on that computer every Thursday paying bills at, 8 in the morning or whatever, set it to update automatically at 8:30 or 9 o'clock that you know you have that computer on. Not to mention, you can physically go in there and manually tell it to update. I've seen computers where I've worked on them and I'm like, this thing has not been updated in 2 years. They've never clicked the update button since they did the original install. It's a nightmare. Not to mention, how secure was that computer? Here you think you have a firewall, you think you have virus scan, you think you have a malware detector that hadn't been updated in 2 years. Like, whoa. Who's in charge of making sure that this is updated? Most of the time they're like, I didn't realize, and I thought it automatically did it. No. You got to go in there and tell it to do it. That's part of this video, is making sure people understand to do the updates. Make sure you have your virus scan, your firewall, a malware detector, whatever other things you think are really needed on that computer. Nowadays, I hear a lot of crazy stuff. Oh, you don't need this, you don't need that. You just need a VPN. I want to tell you, no, that's not right. You still want to follow the best standard practices. You need to have the firewall, you need to have virus scan, you need to have your malware detection. There's a couple other things out there now, a couple different versions of stuff that have different names, that have different scanning stuff now. But, you know, this is 2021. What we're going to have a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, I'm sure we're going to have more malicious software out there with a different name, with a different kind of scanner, because it attacks you in a different way, and those type of things. Brute attack of force, I think, is the brute force attack. Used to be a major thing that you would have with computers. Now, most switches and other devices and have blockers that will block some of that. That used to be a major thing in the old days. They used to have special software to put in a computer just to do protection on those. Now it's part of your firewall that is inside your computer. These are things that are going to come up year after year after year after year after year, something new. I know it's going to suck, but you got to kind of keep updated on what you need. In the old days, it used to be kind of like, oh, I just need a virus scan, I don't need a firewall. Now you have to have a firewall and a virus scan. Oh, no. Now you have to have a firewall, a virus scan, a malicious hardware, even something like they have ransomware detection. They have lots of different versions of stuff now out there because all these people keep writing codes. One of the factors that has stopped a lot of this stuff, since I'm going on about updates, is your BIOS update. That's not really something amateurs should be really doing by themselves, because if you get the wrong versions or you get the wrong software or the wrong motherboard design, sometimes there's multiple software for the similar computer. Because let's say you had a Pentium, original Pentium, that motherboard might be different than the original Celeron. Then they had, another processor out. Even it might have been an AMD. Those are different BIOS versions. Secondary thing is when you do a BIOS update, you really need to make sure the power stays on when you do that. For a laptop, it's not too bad because there's a battery in the laptop that should keep it alive in case you have a power outage or something freaky happens at that time that you do a BIOS update. Now you'll say, that won't ever happen. I'm going to tell you it will happen because it's happened to me multiple times. multiple times. Probably 50 times or more. Now, whenever I work on a computer, especially at work, there's a UPS between that wall jack and that computer. Even though the building I'm in has an alternative backup device, it still takes time before that power kicks in to get there. If you're flashing that BIOS, when that power goes down, that computer will go down before that backup kicks in. So even then, I have a battery backup mounted, the standard plug-in battery backup. That's my recommendation. That's best standard practice, is to have a battery plug-in backup on that computer, especially if it's a tower or anything else that does not have a battery operation on it when you do a BIOS flash. Some of the new boards, the expensive boards, have dual BIOSes on there where you can open it up and say, okay, switch over to that other BIOS to recover because the other one went down. A lot of boards don't have that. So that's a factor that I want to bring up. That has been one of the causes for ransomware and other things, is having an outdated BIOS. There's been a lot of things linked to that. There's been things they found, so that's why they have the patches. BIOS updates also are important for hardware updates. M.2, SATA drives. A lot of those things will function a lot better, or may not function at all unless you do a BIOS update. You can do your homework. I don't want to tell people really how to get into those settings. I'll show it probably in another video. But when you start up your computer, it'll give you a key to push, probably delete. There used to be escape, F1, F2. F12 is normally your boot up. Sometimes, depending on the BIOS, it'll tell you what you want, what it wants. Some of them used to be the space bar. It varies to the make and model and who makes the BIOS. BIOS, I will have video on that because that's a crucial, important thing on the motherboard. I have a motherboard here. BIOS controls all of this. Tells your CPU, it's kind of the brains. It's actually the computer of the computer. One of the key factors is on some of these boards, especially the older boards, the BIOS is really important to know, because the BIOS tells you what you can put in here, the CPU. Certain BIOSes are only workable with certain things. If you go back to my memory video where I've talked about how people recommend and what they're doing with memory, and if you have an expensive board, it'll balance out, but the cheaper boards won't. They'll crash. It's because of the BIOS. How it's programmed, what it'll accept, all of that type of stuff. So, this is one of the key factors in security, is the updates. That's one of the key factors. When you have the BIOS on the board, I gotta state this because now AMD's is not on the board, it's on the chip. I'm not too sure about their updates and all of that stuff because it's still new and I haven't fiddled with that one yet. When you have the BIOS on the board, it's important to know that because that's what controls what's on here. It tells it how to function and all of that. What CPU and all of that. When you have BIOS updates, there's other updates that go along with that for Windows. A lot of times, like if you're doing a Windows update and it have optional updates, and then you go down and there's driver updates for your NIC card. Like if you're doing an Intel, it'll be an Intel management. Intel management is linked to the BIOS. That helps the OS, your operating system, communicate to your BIOS system. That gets them to work better together. Doing those updates will help better the performance of your system. Not to mention security, because if you have outdated drivers and other things, you have vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities is a whole huge category that they consider patches and all kinds of other stuff and updates, and there's all kinds of stuff that falls into that category. But for this video, I wanted to stick with make sure people do the updates. Make sure if you're in a business, especially like that scenario, you have your server, you have a receptionist, you have your back office, you may even have another back office. That's all you have for your business. You're a real tiny business. Someone has to make sure, even if you're in that middle office and you're managing the server and you're watching to see what the receptionist is doing, your job is also to make sure that receptionist's computer is updated, your computer is updated, that back computer is updated, and that server is updated. That's a lot of work. So a lot of people just don't do it. But this is where it gets into that security. Make sure everything's updated. Your virus scans, all your software, everything needs to be updated. That's part of the key security features here. I know I've gone on a lot with this, but this is really one of the things I've seen. Not to mention there's some other stuff that really isn't security based, but like make sure you empty the trash can. I've gone and worked on computers where people haven't emptied their trash can in 10 years. And that slowed down and bogged down that system so badly because of all the data they got in there. Want to throw that one in because it's interesting to troubleshoot that and to find out a trash can has so much trash in it because it's never been emptied in 10 years. And what's bad is you go to details and you can see when they did this stuff. So you know how long it's been. So, and then you got to try to explain that to someone politely and try not to be rude. So, as long as you're doing this as a best practice and you know what you're doing, hopefully no one has to have that discussion with you or you have to have that discussion with someone else because it's kind of an awkward discussion. So hopefully that will prevent this. And I've had that multiple times. Multiple times. Home and other kind of locations. So, I think I'll wrap this one up. I'll have to think about what I'm going to do for the next ones. But, for now, I think that'll hold. I got a lot of it out. With all this pandemic, all this real world funky craziness. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of what is truly involved in security. It's not just as simple as you have this and this in there. Alrighty, hit the comments, subscribe, you know the drill.